Welcome back. Having learned a great deal about the historical events that helped to forge the Gibraltarian identity in Part 1, its spirituality and consistent resolve were equally addressed by the next speaker of the night, Levi Attias.
Good evening, Your Excellency, Deputy Chief Minister, Minister Linares, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Forgive me if I sound nasal. I did call my doctor this morning, and he picked the phone up, and I said, "This is Levi Attias, and I've got a cold." He said, "Well, I regret to tell you there's no solution for either of those conditions." My topic for this evening is perhaps slightly, it's just personal, obviously. I'm a Jew. My father is a Jew. My mother is a Jewess. My 4 grandparents, Jews, lie buried in the Gibraltar North Front Hebrew Cemetery. My family arrived on these shores post-1704. Their migrant life was the migrant life of the wandering Jew, fleeing, fatigued, fearful, surrendered to the ferocity of fate, but fervently Jewish. They were not fickle to their faith. A singular sense of hope and an indelible, instinctive trust in God sustained them in a sea of harassment, recurrent menace, and shattered lives wherever they went. It is said that Jews may be short on geography, but by heck, we have a lot of history. By the time my ancestors came to Gibraltar, Jews and expulsions were synonymous. Those who were fortunate to escape ruthless pogroms moved on, hoping for a change in fortune somewhere elsewhere. My family did what Jews always did. They clung to hope and cemented their faith, expectant of a less ashen future on these shores. On these shores, while preserving their Judaism, they assimilated into a nascent Gibraltarian identity in infancy, which shaped migrants to this land from a wide medley of backgrounds, forging us into a nation. In 1704, a force of Anglo-Dutch fleet attacked and occupied Gibraltar. The nearby ports of northern Morocco proved a godsend, as provisions to supply the Gibraltar garrison came from Morocco. Much of the commerce in Tetuan was handled by Jews. Many were Spanish speakers whose forefathers had settled in northern Morocco following their expulsion from Spain in 1492. Until 1713, Gibraltar remained de jure part of Spain, and any Jew found on Spanish soil exposed himself to the tormenting torture of the Spanish Inquisition. So Jews came to these shores with trepidation, as did my family. Jews' apprehension was vindicated when in July 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht was signed, and Article 10 imposed the racist condition that Jews or Moors were not to reside or to have their dwellings in the said town of Gibraltar. While welcoming Jewish traders for selfish reasons, British commanders honored the racist clause of Utrecht. On the 28th November 1713, Lord Lexington, the British ambassador to Madrid, wrote to Colonel Congreve, governor of Gibraltar, asking him to throw away from Gibraltar, evict from Gibraltar all Jews and all Moors. The repeated threat of expulsion shadowed Jews and Moors with indecent frequency. Despite Utrecht, by 1725, Jews numbered 137, comprising 12% of the total population. In that year, Colonel King, who replaced Hargraves, reminded the British government that Jews were in Gibraltar in breach of Utrecht, and he sought the expulsion of Jews from Gibraltar. Despite Utrecht, by 1753, Jews numbered 572, comprising 32% of the civilian population. Despite Utrecht, in 1791, the governor appointed Aaron Cardoso, a Jew, to be a civilian advisor on police matters and also to act as representative of the Hebrew inhabitants. Because of Utrecht, in 1849, Governor Gardiner, with an instinct for generating animosity, insisted that he would have his way, and he wished to expel all Jews from Gibraltar. However, Gardiner left, Jews remained. Despite Utrecht, by the early 19th century, Jews had consolidated an extensive harvest of community institutions locally. We grew deep roots in our new homeland. A solid fluorescence of relations between communities ensued, evolved and expanded, assimilating immigrants into the Gibraltarian identity with particular Gibraltarian values. Despite Utrecht, the contribution of the Jewish community to Gibraltar's development has been vibrant and broad. In 2001, would have been 2001 thereabouts, we had the brilliant idea of joint sovereignty. And I was very, very involved in those days with the Voice of Gibraltar group. And we traveled extensively. We were in London, we were in different places, fighting for Gibraltar's rights. We ended up in Madrid, where Jack Straw was meeting with Senor Piqué. And there was a whole cluster of Gibraltarians, waving our flags and so forth. And we were invited, 3 of us were invited to meet Jack Straw. And I remember Peter Haynes sitting in a corner, quite quiet. I don't think he was very popular, then or now. Jack Straw then said that he regretted to tell us that Gibraltar's future was conditioned and curtailed by the Treaty of Utrecht. As it so happened that the 3 of us were selected by the Gibraltarian demonstrators who went to meet Jack Straw were Jews. And we told him that he should start by trying to remove the Jews from Gibraltar. Because the 3 of us were Jews, proud Gibraltarians, and that forms part of the Treaty of Utrecht. Dialogue is cooperative, constructive conversation between people of different cultures. It is dependent on education, 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 while ignorance, ignorance, ignorance provides the perfect breeding soil for baseless hatred. I believe that no religion or culture is beyond discussion or beyond scrutiny or beyond debate, and that's why I emphasize education, education and enlightenment, because that can dismantle ignorance, ignorance and baseless hatred. Despite Utrecht, I learned in this unique little big Gibraltar that God's voice speaks to me not only in the holy books and in eternal, timeless wisdom, but in the facial creases lining every human I commune with. For each face embraces lifetime stories of personal successes and rugged discomfort, hoarded happiness and insufferable indignity. I learned in this unique little big Gibraltar that it's not a matter of seeing different things on the road to spiritual awareness, but in seeing things differently. I learned in this unique little big Gibraltar that the scene is set for us from birth to bond with fellow Gibraltarians and with humanity. Being human is a given. Keeping our humanity is a choice. None of us were free to decide whether we'd be born in the affluent West or in some poverty-stricken country, nor whether the color of our eyes are blue or brown, or whether we are black or white. None of these facts were for us to determine. Yet whether we look upon each other with indifference or compassion is for us to decide. Biology determines our physical height, but we are the architects of our spiritual stature. Our language is determined by our geocultural environment, but whether our words are soothing or jagged is for us to decide. Life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. And I raise my hand and I plead guilty in front of all of you. Guilty of being in breach of one of the terms of the Treaty of Utrecht. Guilty of being a Gibraltarian Jew living in this, my birthplace, my homeland, my country. With immense pride, I stare at the pertinent part of Article 10 of the Treaty of Utrecht and I plead guilty. Despite Utrecht, we treasure and nurture the mantle of exemplary good relations in Gibraltar. We nurture it for our own welfare. We nurture it for the welfare and pride of future generations of fellow Gibraltarians who will, I am convinced, continue to embrace cultural harmony even in the long shadow of a racist treaty. In closing, I'd like to read to you this ennobling and inspiring poem, for it is in the bridges we build that we find the measure of our success as human beings, and because I feel that this poem encapsulates tremendously the function, the purpose, the raison d'etre of understanding. An old man travelling a lonely highway came in the evening, cold and grey, to a chasm deep and wide, and he looked from side to side. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, for the sullen stream had no fear of him, but he turned when he reached the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, cried a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day, and you never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm, deep and wide. Why build you a bridge at even tide? And the builder raised his old grey head and said, good friend, on the path I've come, he said, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This stream which has been as naught to me, to that fair-haired boy may a sad fall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. Thank you.
There we have a brief insight into the start of a new group whose mission it is to promote and nurture the very special and unique society that we have here in Gibraltar. Their conference is hopefully the first of many to help us and the world in understanding Gibraltar.